Season of Discovery, PvP, predictions, and theory crafting. Let's get into it. Now, the first spec that I want to go over is a spec that me and my friend have been theory crafting. Shaman dual wield double biter. People are talking about enhancement shamans being bad this phase. I don't think so. I think this spec is going to be exceptionally good with dual wield and double rockbiter weapon, which is giving you almost 400 attack power. You have Molten Blast, which scales with attack power as well, and that's going to be hitting for quite a lot as well. And then you're running Way of Earth, which also combines with your rockbiter weapons, giving you 30% increased health, 10% increased damage, and 6% reduced chance to be critical hit by melee attacks. Also, you're able to use Earth Shock and Frost Shock or Flame Shock on separate cooldowns, right? So you got like Molten Blast, Earth Shock, Frost Shock, those are your heavy hitters, right? And then on top of that, if you have a Feral Druid with you, you have Wild Strikes. And Wild Strikes is a buff, while a rockbiter weapon is a weapon imbue, right? So having double rockbiter and being able to Wind Fury with your main hand is going to be absolutely insane, and no one's really talking about this. Lightning Shield level 24 as well. That's gonna be hitting for 51 baseline, and then obviously you have 15% increased from your talents. You have an Earth Shock level 24, which is gonna be hitting like a truck as well. So I think this build is going to absolutely blow people's minds, especially with a Feral Druid with them. It will work without one, but with a Feral Druid, this is going to be absolutely insane. Now for the Feral Druid, this is the build that I would go for on a Feral Druid. I'd go for Wild Strikes, Mangle, and Savage Roar. You could swap out Savage Roar for Skull Bash. Obviously, it depends. It really depends on the PvP you're doing. Like, obviously, if you're doing big world PvP, I'd probably have more fun with Savage Roar, right? But if you're doing like a duel against a caster or something like that, Skull Bash might be slightly better because you don't really get a lot of combo points early with your crits. Maybe you want to spend them on the rip, but you're losing 30% increased damage, which is kind of shit. You could potentially go for Survival of the Fittest instead of Wild Strikes if you're playing solo and if you want to survive for longer. That's especially going to be good at level 40 when you get Dire Bear form. Now, obviously, your main damage ability is going to be Shred, assuming you have Mangle debuff on the target. And if you have Savage Roar and Mangle, your Shreds are going to be doing 60% more damage, and they're already doing pretty good damage in Classic normally. So getting 60% increased damage on Shred is absolutely insane. And here you can see the new ranks that we get level 22 to 24. If we get Tiger's Fury, the new version of it that was data mined, that's been set to give 60 energy on use and 15% increased damage. That's going to be very strong if you're gonna snapshot your rips, for example, with that. And also, it's gonna make your opener very, very strong. We don't really know if we're gonna get that, but if we get that at level 24, that's going to be insane. And I think Feral Druids will be one of the strongest classes if we get that. Balanced Druids. Now, Balanced Druids are going to be okay. They're not gonna be the best. They're gonna be somewhere in the middle. This is the build I'd go for. And then Runes, Sunfire, Fury of Stormrage, and Star Search. You won't really play a lot with your runes. These are definitely going to be the best ones you're going to use as a Balanced Druid. Now, things worth to mention about Balanced Druids is improved Starfire. Now, improved Starfire at level 25 is going to give your Starfire a 15% chance to stun the target for 3 seconds. That's assuming you have 5 out of 5 points in there. At level 25, we can only get 1 point in there, so that's only 3%, so it's definitely not worth going for that at this level. Now, you might be asking, well, Starfire, you're never going to be casting Starfire. Well, you're correct. You're probably never going to be casting that, but Star Search, as you can see, it benefits and triggers from Wrath and Starfire talents. That being said, your Star Surge is going to be stunning people. So that's going to be pretty damn good at level 40. I'm mentioning this now, even though this is at level 25 bracket. You could put 1 point in there. I probably wouldn't. I'd probably go for Vengeance. That's 20% increased damage on your critical strikes. All right, off to the next one. Beast Mastery Hunters. Now, Beast Mastery Hunters are going to be interesting. I think this will be the best build to go for. Cobra Strikes, Beast Mastery, and Kill Command. Kill Command's going to be... it's going to be good. But I would probably go for Flanking Strike myself, because when people catch up to you, you want to be able to have a strong melee combat as well. So Raptor Strike being 3-second cooldown, flanking strike, 30-second cooldown, and raptor strikes able to reset the cooldown on it. And also your pet striking as well for 100% of the damage when you're using flanking strikes. So there is a combination in there as well. There is no need to go into the survival tree this early. It might be stronger late game, or well, later phases, but for now, I'd say Beast Mastery is going to be better. Now, as you can see over here, charge, if you have a boar and you have 50% increased damage on your pet with Beast Mastery rune and your talents, having charge on a boar that you get level 24, and a new bite as well, as you can see. Having charging the target with 50% increased damage, that's definitely going, like if that crits, you're definitely going to be doing massive damage. And if you're combining flanking strike with that and all that jazz, that's going to be pretty damn strong. Marksmanship Hunter. Now, this is the build that I definitely go for in PvP. Lone Wolf, Chimera Shot, and Sniper Training. Reason you don't go for Explosive Shot is because apparently it shares cooldown with Aim Shot and Arcane Shot, so it kind of defeats the purpose of going it. This build, I'm sure a lot of people have seen. Obviously, your melee combat is going to be lackluster. You don't even have a pet, so... Well, you could obviously call one, especially if you're playing with a spider or something. You can call one in a melee combat and have the pet web the target and then just get away. Fire Mage. Now, Fire Mages, you do get a new Fireball and new Power Blaster level 24. However, you're definitely not going to be hard casting Fireball in most PvP scenarios, so I think the Scorch build is going to be better. This build is going to focus heavily on the impact stun, so there's 10% chance to stun the target. You're going to have burns, you're going to have more crits on it, and you're just going to be more mobile, right? You play with Burnout, which is 15% increased crit. You play with Living Bomb, you play with Living Flame. You could potentially swap out Living Flame for Arcane Surge, depending on how good it is. We don't really know by now, but Living Flame is definitely strong. It's ticking for quite a lot, I've seen, from the BlizzCon beta. And as you can see, Scorch level 22 and Fire Blast level 22, they're hitting for quite a lot. And potentially you could take out 2 points in precision and play with flame throwing if you want more range, but then you will be lacking that 4% hit chance from the Frost tree. Frost Mage PvP, I think, is one of the most overrated specs in this 25 bracket based on what I've been seeing people talk about. You have a level 20 Frost Bolt, so it's absolutely garbage to play with. That's hitting for almost the same as Scorch. You don't have Shatter, and you're kind of just fishing for Ice Lances with Fingers of Frost. You could potentially take out Icy Veins for Arcane Surge, but realistically, this build is focusing heavily on trying to get Fingers of Frost proc, which is going to be kind of shit. The Ice Lances are going to be hitting for 27, so tripling that is still dog shit damage, right? So I think Fire is definitely going to outshine Frost in PvP. Red Paladins. Now, Red Paladins are going to be getting a lot of things. They're getting so many things that it's hard to choose from, right? And you kind of have to have Rebuke. You kind of have to have that kick on a Paladin as well. So they're kind of forced to do that. You're going to be playing with Divine Storm, Crusader Strike, and Rebuke most of the time. This is basically a Wrath of the Lich King Paladin with a Seal of Command. Now, Paladins are getting a lot of their stuff on those early levels. Hammer of Justice, 4-second stun, Seal of Justice. They're getting Blessing of Protection. They're getting a lot of things. Their Bubble, Freedom. They're going to be very, very strong early. Discipline Priests. Now, Disc Priests are going to be the best priest spec. This is the build that I'd probably go for. You could swap out the 5 in Wand instead of Unbreakable Will, but realistically, this will be the build to go for because we're playing Strength of Soul, which reduces the duration of weakened soul on targets that are getting healed by 4 seconds. They also have Penance and Prayer Mending, which you can play around with as well. Power with Shield at level 24. Now that's going to be shielding for a lot, and if you're having an improved one, that's 15% increased. We're not going for Martyrdom because we're playing with healing focus, so we don't really need Martyrdom. We're instead going for improved Power Word Fortitude because, again, we get a new rank at level 24, and getting a 15% increase on that is pretty big as well. This priest is definitely going to be very strong, and spamming flash heal, which is going to be very strong as well. To be able to shield yourself constantly is, yeah, it's pretty damn strong. You can penance as well, and if you're getting kicked on holy, you can mind blast meanwhile, and then wands as well. We also have 2 points in blackout, which gives you 4% chance to stun the target. If you're trying to run away, you could be spamming, for example, rank 1 Shadow Word Pain, and that's a 4% chance to stun the target, which is damn good, and also works with mind blast, right? Shadow Priests. Now, this is the build that I'd play. 7 points into disc for martyrdom, shadow focus, basically 4% hit chance, improved shadow word pain, and you play blackout. You could potentially bail on the improved shadow word pain because shadow pain is absolutely dog shit at this level. The last rank you get of shadow word pain is level 18, and your next rank is level 26, which makes shadow priests very bad at this level, unfortunately. So you're going to be playing around void plague, Shadow Word Death, and Homunculi. I'm not saying they're going to be absolutely dog shit. I'm just saying they're definitely not going to be as strong as they are going to be in next phase. And this is one of the biggest reasons why Disc is going to be way, way better than Shadow. And you're essentially doing the same things, because Mind Flay is also very bad at this level. Your last Mind Flay rank is level 20. And the wand is almost better, and it's not spending mana. So yeah, realistically, you want to play Disc, Shadow, you could play, just not as good. Obviously, you're going to be using Mind Blast and Smite. The only difference is you won't get as many shields, and you're playing with Martyrdom, which is pretty good. You could potentially play Shared Pain or Twisted Faith or even Penance instead of Shadow or Death. You could play around with the spec as well. Like, you could play Shadow if you really want that improved Shadow Word Pain. Level 18 Shadow Word Pain, go for it, but yeah, that's enough of Shadow. Backstab Rogue. You could potentially play this spec because you play with Slaughter from the Shadows, which reduces your Backstab's energy cost by 20, which is pretty damn good. So your Backstab energy cost is 40 energy, so you're going to be able to spam that quite a lot. And if you have a good dagger, that's pretty damn good. And you're playing with Shadow Strike as well, because in PvP you want to be mobile. You want to get behind the target. You're not going to be using ambush. Now people are talking about not having cheap shot, not having kidney shot. Who cares? You have between the eyes. Basically the same thing as kidney shot, but just better. You're playing with improved sprint to get out of roots. You're playing with improved gouge. Those are going to be your big ones. Big ones in talents. And you also have 4 points in opportunity. 16% increased damage. Bleed Rogue build. This build is kind of a meme, but if you really want to play it, and if you're playing, for example, with a Feral Druid, have fun with it. You could be playing with Deadly Brew, which is going to give you deadly poisons, and Saber Slash, which is a stackable bleed as well, instead of Sinister Strike, and Between the Eyes. Potentially, instead of Between the Eyes, you could go for Envenom, but realistically, we're playing PvP, not PvE, so your target's not going to be standing there just making you stack poisons on it, so Between the Eyes and having control in PvP, always better. You still have improved sprint, opportunity as well, and precision. Combat PvP build. This is the best PvP build in my opinion. Playing Quick Draw for range slow, Shadow Strike to get behind targets, even with Vanish, and Between the Eyes, which is the ranged kidney shot. Now, the reason this is the best PvP build is because you don't have bleeds ruining your gouges, so you can gouge first aid, for example. You are playing with Disarm from Riposte, you're playing with Improved Sprint, which gets you out of roots, and you have a ranged slow to catch up to people. With this build, you're definitely utilizing everything that you're getting here. Elemental Shamans. Now, this build is going to be running with Shield Mastery, Lava Burst, and Way of Earth. Way of Earth, you're running with 5% increased damage on your shocks, so you're going to be using the shocks same as with the enhancement build. You're going to be using Frost Shock, Flame Shock, and Earth Shock. Flame Shock and Frost Shock sharing cooldown, and Earth Shock not sharing cooldown. This build is going to be close range because you want to be using your Earth Shocks. If, however, you want to go, for long range, you have Lava Burst. Now, you could potentially take that out for Molten Blast because, well, it's kind of a clunky playstyle, but you could play around it. And again, you're going to be running, as you can see, the Lightning Shield, Stone Skin Totem, Rock Biter, Earth Shock, all that stuff at level 24, which is going to be very, very strong. And you're also going to be very tanky with this build. So I'd say this is more of a tanky build, close range. Affliction Demo Warlock PvP. Now, you're going to be running with Metamorphosis in this build, Master Channeler, and Everlasting Affliction. Now, what makes this build very strong is, of course, Metamorphosis, and I don't think it matters what build you go. Warlocks are going to be very, very strong with Metamorphosis. You could play around with Chaos Bolt, you could play around with Haunt, and go for different builds, but realistically, Metamorphosis is just going to be the best and going to be so much better than the other choices. You're gonna have a charge to stay up close to targets, instant searing pains, 100% increased mana from life taps, and so forth. More armor, everything. You're gonna be running Master Channeler, which gives you 50% more health each tick of drained life, and you don't have to channel it anymore. It's just a dot on the target, which makes it fucking insane. You're gonna be having corruption on the target. Now you get a new corruption rank at level 24, which makes it your best damaging ability. Also, Sharing Pain is spammable. So Sharing Pain, Corruption, Charges, and Everlasting Affliction, making your Shadow Cleave or Shadow Bolt, which changes to Shadow Cleave, reset the duration on Corruption on every target it hits, and Shadow Cleave hits 3 targets. So get dots up, stay up close, spam Searing Pain, and Shadow Cleave, you know the deal. This is going to be very, very strong. Destro locks. Now, Destro locks are going to be using Metamorphosis as well, and Master Channeler and Everlasting Affliction. This is going to be the same runes as you use in the Affliction demo. You know, obviously you could go for Chaos Bolt, Plague of Fire, and Incinerate in those Ashenvale PvP scenarios. You're going to be seeing bigger numbers. It's probably going to be more fun in those scenarios, but in PvP you're mostly going to be using this build. Metamorphosis changes Shadow Bolt into Shadow Cleave, and with this build, if that crits, then you do 20% increased shadow damage on the targets with improved Shadow Bolt, and you have a 10% chance to daze the targets with Aftermath. And you're going to be using Shadow Burn as well. What makes Shadow Burn pretty damn good is also you get a new rank at level 24, which makes it actually hit pretty hard. You could play around with talents if you're, like I said, in a different scenario. The only downside to it is Searing Pain at level 18, just like the Priest. Like, using a level 18 spell is very fit at level 25, especially when you get a new rank at level 26, right? Warriors. Now, Warriors would go for this build. That's arms with some crit from Fury as well. You could potentially play around with Cruelty, like take 2 points out of that and put into Improved Overpower, which I probably would do in most scenarios. Improved Overpower is going to be very, very good. Obviously not as good as with 200, but still. Now, you're going to be running Warbringer, Devastate, and Furious Thunder. You're running Furious Thunder because all 3 runes in that tree are kind of shit, so that's the best one that you can use with a 100 shield. 100 shield is very good because you have Shield Bash, you have that kick. Some people would say, well, you still have that as a two-hander if you just switch to 100 shield. Yes, you do, but it has a global cooldown, which kind of fucks it up for you. And also, Devastate is going to be the best instant attack that you have at this level. A new Sunder Armor at level 22, Execute level 24, Rogue Strike level 24, Intimidating Shout, all that jazz. You're going to be very, I'd say, strong in close range, but you're going to be kited a lot, which makes this build kind of shit at this stage. However, at level 40, Warriors will shine. For 200 build, you could go for Frenzied Assault, which increases your attack speed but with 200s by 20%. Quick Strike, which is going to be your instant attack, which is going to be pretty damn good, and Endless Rage. So Warriors are going to be strong if they catch up to people. If they can't, they're shit, which is going to be most of the time. Now, that's it for now, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.